What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roost. So I'm going to review the second album by Playaz Circle. Basically, this product is called Flight 360, The Takeoff, and it came out in the fall of 2009. Now, for some strange reason, it says that this album came out June 23rd of 2009, but I remember this album coming out in September 2009 as far as those pitches kind of happened. That's kind of stuff that's been happening among some of these times. They've been kind of grafted at different times. Something that also happened with like the Boys in the Hood album from 2007, and I want to say like the Boys in the Hood album from 2007 and Scarface's Made album from 2007, albums like that. I'd have to say in particular, probably some other ones in there, just some of that type fare, possibly Gorilla Zoe's album. I just had to say in particular, but just some of those particular type ones. I look after the pitch, but yeah, this album came out in the fall of 2009. I remember that particular pitch. It's kind of just like an awkward era as far as those particular products kind of wound up happening. As this came out around a time when things just in particular kind of had the fare. This came out around a particular time where the graftiness of what was going on in rap music was just a little bit different as things were starting to get bigger on like the mixtape scene of like the late 2000s, early 2010s, but also the fare of kind of shifting away from like the late 2000s kind of trap sound. More of folks like Jeezy, Young Jock, Young Dro, some of those type of folks. But the thing about it was, is Playaz Circle was amongst those particular times. So it's an interesting development seeing as what they're particularly getting to. Because the thing about it is 2 Chainz was still known as Titty Boy on this particular product, but he was a pretty quality lyricist, and it was showcasing the fact that yeah, he has the ability to do some of this type of stuff and be kind of a sufficient, along with Dollar Boy. Both the team up of these two, Titty Boy and Dollar Boy, were able to put out quality albums here that was kind of pseudo in like the forefront of rap, but just not quite as much. I kind of feel like they were probably more in like bigger than folks like OJ the Juice Man or like Waka Flocka around this time in 2009, but not quite as large as like T.I. or Jeezy, despite the fact that they were phasing out of the spotlight in 2009. So it's kind of the pitch where this was kind of like an interesting kind of secondary angle for Southern rap music around this time, because 2009 was just different because it was kind of developing new melds as far as like the state of music was kind of going. It was just the concept originally. 2 Chainz was not going to go solo in like the late 2000s. They were going to continue to pump out more Playaz Circle albums, but the graftment of how that particularly happened just kind of changed. And the aspect was you got at least this one more album, which is a pretty good concept just because of the fact that the 2007 album, I remember reviewing that in 2023 and basically recommending every single song on there, giving that album a 10 out of 10. Same thing with this particular album. I recommend virtually every song here. There's only one song out of these 13 songs on here that I don't recommend. So this album's going to get a 10 out of 10 also, but it's just within the aspect as far as saying that this is the last batch of this concept. So this is a very strange kind of project just within the aspect. It just feels like this album probably, I don't want to say probably shouldn't have come out, but this is kind of a good luck charm that it did. This is kind of like a good luck charm that it did just within the aspect, because it just is some bonus type music that just feels a lot. Just it feels very kind of like austere or obscure. I don't know if austere is the correct word. It feels very like, what's the word? It feels very esoteric just within the concept behind it. This is a strange period as far as those pitches going to happen, just the sorts of changes that were going on. Like I was saying, T.I. was going to prison. Gucci Mane was on the come up, getting ready to shift some sounds in music. Like the mixtape scene was getting ready to pop off. Lil Wayne was getting ready to go to prison. Jeezy was kind of phasing out of the spotlight. So it's just kind of the concept of some of these type folks. Folks like Young Jock and Young Dro were kind of phasing out of the spotlight. Gorilla Zoe was dominating. So this is kind of within the tone. This is a differential type tone, but it's a pretty good hoisted type aspect as far as those pitches can happen. Just some good type appeal. And I overall look after just being able to say that this album was, maybe not a superb kind of big deal around the time, but definitely a good look to kind of know about this because it did have some secret songs. Now, the thing about it is just the fact it's a little bit tougher to track down. I want to say it got removed from iTunes. It has been said that these particular products, because of a debate or like a copyright type situation over their name, Playaz Circle, it kind of had these albums removed. So a little bit more tricky to track down, but it is worth it just as throwback to 2 Chainz' earliest days in terms of him being like a rapper with albums, and then Dollar Boy, who's a pretty good mixtape rapper and overall good lyricist as well on here as far as those pitch going to happen. So it's a good tone. But yeah, there were 5 singles off this project. The first one was Stupid. So it was the thing about this particular project was just the fact that, once again, the concept behind these singles, they promoted this project pretty well. It had 5 singles, which is different from the 3 singles, or just really only 1 single off of their 2007 album. Most folks kind of just most folks just kind of went the other way after the after effects of like Duffel Bag Boy kind of wore off, which was kind of the pitch. And that was basically a hit because of the Lil Wayne hook, but it's just kind of the concept that Supply and Demand from 2007 did have some extra hits on there, but they just didn't really get much attention. It's the same thing with this particular album. They did good on like the R&B and hip hop charts, but it's just kind of the concept that for the most part, this particular group just has always had its difficulties with really getting forth with like the trajectory. But these are excellent songs. So Stupid is a nice one. It's like a factory kind of night venue buzz noise kind of get here and motivation. I would definitely feel like this kind of vintage mid 2000s ATL sound with like an OJ the Juice Man sound melded in. I'd have to say it's a pretty nice one kind of get. So this feels like this typical kind of mild Gucci Mane, more kind of flavored OJ the Juice Man of like the mid 2000s, considering he was kind of one that was on the come up and was poised to next blow up throughout like the spring and summer of 2009 as far as this pitch can happen. It was a nice kind of trendy type off for that particular time, but I do feel like they probably have more blistering songs in there. Not to say anything against this particular song, it's just kind of the concept. It's a good song, but it feels more like a buzz single just within the pitch. I do definitely recommend this song. It's just a more factory kind of, this typical kind of relevant to like the first half of 2009 kind of ATL sound. So it's just kind of the concept. This is, like I was saying, a very conduit type phase of some of the stuff that was going on when you had folks like Gorilla Zoe and OJ the Juice Man who were kind of in like the first half of 2009, and then in the second half you had folks like Waka Flocka and Gucci Mane and more folks like that as far as those pitches kind of happen, like the mixtape type sound of, you know, Future and Rocco, some of those type folks. But good type tone. Hold Up is the second single. Now, this is a real excellent type one, but you know, the thing about this particular album is just the fact that none of these singles are really like huge deals in terms of like the chart appeals. That's just kind of the concept. I feel like the score is going to get a classic score, but the social score may not get as high just because there's not really any song as huge as Duffel Bag Boy on here, I'd have to say, which is just kind of the tone. I mean, it has some good songs, but in terms of like a commercial smash, there's really not much of anything. I want to say the most popular song according to Spotify really only had 1 million plays, which is just Look What I Got. But some of these ones, like Stupid, had 100,000. The Ludacris song had 140,000. Big Dog with Lil Wayne had 100,000. I mean, this is really a here and there type project, but it's just kind of the concept that does have some good songs, but just casual wise didn't really have like the dynamite smashes. Is kind of the concept. But yeah, Hold Up is like a glittery kind of nightclub gleam kind of get here. Definitely probably one of the best productions in terms of singles. It's like a woozing kind of emphatic drawl to kind of get. Nice song to mingle to, a good bop for that. Nice mingle bop. And this is like some advanced kind of swag rap to kind of have. So it's just within the pitch. That's another variation about this particular album. Is it has some of the last batches of like the mid 2000s kind of swag rap that was popular with folks like T.I. and Jeezy and Dem Franchise Boys and Rocco and some of those type folks and Shawty Low. This is a good type pitch because 2 Chainz, City Boy's pretty good swag rapper, and Dollar Boy's pretty good at it as well. So it's just a good pitch, kind of get some of that. It's a real nice butter smooth type one to kind of get with this that emphatic drawl about it. So it's just good type tone. Can't Remember is the third single. This has Bobby V on there, which is a pretty good pitch. It's like a malaise and kind of out and about dredge of a song kind of gets. Kind of half makeshift, but also half ladies rumination, I'd have to say. Nice ponder kind of think of this nice ponder to kind of have for some ladies that kind of blew your mind as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's just a ruffled kind of song to kind of have. Just kind of maybe not so much like a bad hair day, but just kind of a ruffled day of just being like, damn, just kind of not so much down on your luck, but just kind of kicking rocks, just kind of in like a more shucks type tone. It's kind of more kicking rocks, just in like a more shucks type tone as far as those pitches kind of happen with it, just within the pitch. It's a nice one. I really do like the malaise of this particular fair. Just really has some feel. This probably could have been a good crossover song just within the pitch. I mean, I feel like it had the attempts in the making of being able to do it. This was kind of the concept that this group was just not given a superb kind of amount of chance, but it is a nice one that really has like a great kind of just 4 o'clock p.m. Just got done with work shift, this kind of glimmer of just like the dredge of just having some of that commute and traverse for us this pitch kind of happen. Just something that has like almost kind of commercial, but this within the sense of just being in a more hustlers makeshift type tone within that. But it is some good concepts for that kind of Atlanta makeshift. I'd have to say good concept for that sort of pitch. And then yeah, We Getting Rich is the 4th single. Now this has Ludacris on there. It's a good sequel to You Can Believe It from their 2007 album Supply and Demand. That was a pretty excellent type one. Both those are pretty soulful. It's like a soulful kind of mixtape smoke up, I would have to say, with some ambition about it. So this one has a little bit more drawl, not so much like a kickback, just get stoned and sit on the couch, but actually like a concept of like, yeah, I feel great. Like I feel like I could climb a mountain, something like that. Just a real good tone, just very empowering, just within the pitch. Just I'd say some good drawl to be able to have for just like, yeah, I want to get up and do some stuff as far as those pitches can happen. Ludacris has, it's almost kind of bittersweet here in Ludacris on this particular song, just because he was kind of at the end of his rope as far as putting out albums. I mean, he at least put out like, I mean, this is right before Battle of the Sexes, and then he only put out one more album after that. But this kind of late in Ludacris's career as he prepared to like almost kind of pass the torch to like the next batch of like what was happening with like the 2010s type music. Just kind of that emphatic draw just within the pitch. Just a good type tone, but yeah, I just would have to say, I mean, he did have further mixtapes, so it's just within the tone that Ludacris was probably more in like a more Twilight type era of his career. It's just good. I do like, but yeah, getting all three of these folks, Dollar Boy, Ludacris, and Two Chains on here is some excellent type era. Just real, just it real has some good bravado. Just a feel good type song, kind of get that one. And then Big Dog is the fifth single. Now this is one that has Lil Wayne on there. This was like supposed to be the sequel to Duffel Bag Boy, just within the pitch. If people feel like, yeah, Duffel Bag Boy is Playaz Circle's best song, it's like the concept of at least getting another song like that. And this has auto tune Lil Wayne on there, which is pretty good, but this is not. I mean, I just would have to say it's just not likely that most folks are probably going to say, not to say like I don't think this is a good song, but it's just within the tone as far as saying just the likelihood of being able to say that it has like the overall casual bite and dynamite type appeal of Duffel Bag Boy is just not as full blown there. But I would say it's like a trippy and more slurred kind of in between venue and hangout type commotion kind of get. Definitely a good song for just more residential fare, just hanging out with some of your good pals, like, you know, Two Chains and Lil Wayne are pretty good pals as far as those pitches kind of happen. They've been longtime pals, and I think Dollar Boy's a part of that as well. So it's a good concept. Just smoking some buds, a standard venue kickback, and just schmooze as far as that particular pitch kind of goes. Has a little bit more refrain about this particular song. This one's not as crazy as Duffel Bag Boy, not quite as ferocious in terms of like the energy, just a little bit more composed, kind of as if like, yeah, this is it's a congratulative type song. It's not so much amongst like the fury of the night, but it's kind of a little bit more reflective, I'd have to say, within the tone. But it is a pretty glissy type song, kind of get just the standard gliss of this. There's just some bliss. It's glissy and it's bliss. I just have to say, there's just some real bliss about this song. Just an emphatic type one, like just appreciating the accolades as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just a real nice one. Lil Wayne does a pretty good hook on here, but it's just not as casual and marketed as ready as like Duffel Bag Boy was. But it is some nice appeal of a song. This is like a good buzz type song, kind of get within the tone of just being like a venue and this kind of hangout type sleaze as far as the pitch can happen. So good type fare. Yeah, so out of 13 songs in here, like I was saying, I wound up recommending 12. So the only song I don't recommend in any fashion is just Weight Droppin', which I would almost recommend this song. I do like the soulful push and like some of the background vocals on here. Raekwon's on here as well, which is a pretty good snag, kind of get that, but I just look after it. It's just like a more upbeat kind of hustle song I would look after. I do like some of the production on this particular song, but I just felt like the composition as the way it kind of delivered, I just don't know how oftenly I would listen to it. I just look after the tone. I feel like Big Wheel Whipping just nailed it better. I feel like there's just some ones within that pitch that just had a little bit more appeal about it. Like it's the same thing with Yeah We Getting Rich. Those are just some more ambient type ones. I feel like it's just kind of more factor within that tone. It's just not one I would as full blown as much have the recommendation for. But still, this album gets a 10 out of 10. Plenty of great songs on here. So Turbulence is a nice one. It's like a syrupy and kind of menacing late 2000s trap push to kind of get within that tone. Just a great dark piano type beat on here as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just very brooding and just a different taste of what the album kind of had to offer. So I kind of look after this album. Probably could have gone in like the direction of having like 3 6 Mafia type, more step out type songs for just like snack runs and pitches like that. But I feel like a lot of this album is just more amongst like the daytime. I mean, there is some night venue type ambience on here, I would say, within a certain sense, just the tone of having some social snap about it. But I look after within the same tone in terms of like more residential type fare. It just has a little bit more. I'm trying to think of what it has here. It has social pizzazz about this project, but it's just kind of within the tone. It's not so much of like Aaron's type project. It's surprising that this project is not as much that much of commerce in mind. In terms of like makeshift dredge, I'd probably say the songs are more designed for the ladies in terms of makeshift, more so than like a standard kind of get to it and hop to it. It's just a little, it's more kind of within the tone of just like being at the venue and just kind of more floss out type moments. Like I would say, like minus Turbulence, I would feel like there's some songs for like night venue ambience, like DJ Know Me, Big Dog, Hold Up, Stupid, some of those type of ones, and Look What I Got, some of those type of pitches. And there's like one neighborhood one in Ghetto, and I'd say, you know, Big Wheel Whipping is like a good standard mixtape hustle type song, and also Out of Here is a pretty good night venue type song, I'd have to say, within the pitch, but I look after it. Yeah, a lot of this is just actually, it's just easier to say that there's just not as much snack run type music, I'd have to say, within the tone behind it. I just look after the fare. It's not as much in transit, which is surprising because I know that usually there would be like some stunt type songs for vehicle wise type stuff on here, but it's just within the tone. It's just more kind of, and obviously I'm not complaining about that, but it's just something to know. It's just as far as like if you're looking for something kind of listen to while you go pick up a burrito at the gas station or get some Taco Bell right quick. There's not really much tones for that sort of appeal, but there is plenty of venue type noise, just homies, daps, and pitches like that. Just some good type fare, just being able to get towards like the ambience of just kicking back. And there is some good ladies makeshift on here, but that's just within the tone. But there's not many songs like Turbulence at all on this particular product. The standard fare is not as much like kind of Mean Mug, kind of more just autumn haze type stuff. But DJ Know Me is a nice appeal. This is like a hazy and brooding kind of throwback to like 2000s kind of mixtape flavor. This has Young Dro on there, which is pretty excellent type fare. It's very truncated type song, I'd have to say, but it's like a great smoke of you to kind of have on here to smoke up in a night venue, some pitches like that. And I would say this could at least be some degree of like that late night traverse just within pitches like that, but it just kind of feels more like the energy of this kind of standard. Like it takes it back to like more of like the 2007 album Supply and Demand type days, but it actually there's some moments on this album that feel less like Playaz Circle and more like the folks that are more their affiliates. Feels more of something like Young Dro, or feels more something like Young Dro or Jeezy, some of those type folks in particular as far as that fair kind of happens, or OJ to Juice Man, Gorilla Zoe, some of those type folks just within the pitch, Boys in the Hood in some senses. Just being able to say, this kind of has that ambience. It's just like a throwback, just considering that Young Dro was kind of in an awkward place in 2009. Originally, he was going to put out an album, but it just didn't happen. He did draw some mixtapes, but it's just kind of the tone. Just kind of noticing like the transit, like, hey, you know, these types of songs aren't being manufactured as much circa late 2009. So it's just within the pitch, but it is a nice one to kind of get that one. Has a real nice twinkling kind of beat on there. Big Wheel Whipping's a pretty nice one. This is pretty trendy to at least like the times of when it was coming out. It's like a great early bird kind of mixtape trap highlight to kind of get within that tone. Great hop to it, and just like an early 2010s kind of hustle gem. You know, you've heard some of these songs, Meek Mill, some of these type folks that have kind of done that, like trying to think of some other folks, Yo Gotti, some of these type folks, the standard mixtape type fare, the standard cast that are affiliated with Gucci Mane and like Roscoe Dash and some of those type folks, Waka Flocka, some of those type batches just within the tone. It feels like your factory kind of early 2010s hustle as far as those pitch kind of having this good concept just for hop to it. It's good type tone. This is a trendy type one just because this was ahead of some of the pitches that kind of happened. But and Quit Flossin' is a highlighted one. This hits up like one of the cats from hits up one of the singers from Jagged Edge as far as this pitch can happen, which is pretty far out just because Jagged Edge was kind of not much around whatsoever in 2009 as far as this pitch can happen. But this is like a nice early evening malaise kind of get here, just some night. It's like some good night venue saunter, just a good show up, just the initial mingle and just figuring out what's going to happen as far as this pitch going to happen. Just a mellow day, I would feel like, with just like a good pairing with like Can't Remember as far as this pitch can happen. I do like some of these ladies' songs on here because they're just a little bit more malaise about it. I do like the glimmer about these particular songs. It does have some good appeal, just like the aspect. It's not just typical kind of ladies twerk and just hop and bop type, just standard bounce of like a strip club type hop. It's just some good malaise of just the dredge behind it. So it's just some good type tones. Like the angle of this particular album with some of that makeshift in that tone. Out of Here is a quality one. This is like a dramatic kind of throwback to like the USDA and Jeezy, like a dramatic throwback to like the USDA and Jeezy days, like the mid 2000s. I'd have to say it feels ripped right out of 2006 or 2007. Just some night venue bass with like a reality check about it. So it's just kind of the concept. It's just kind of the concept, but just like a more realness factor. Just being able to say that, yeah, this is some good times, but just realizing that it's kind of the concept of realizing that times are changing as far as those pitch kind of happen. This is another one that just kind of has like, yeah, reminiscent vibes of 2007, but just the concept of like, okay, you know, gotta keep my bills paid and stay in order as far as those pitch kind of happen. Just not just stay down to earth type songs. It's kind of one of the ones to be 10 toes down to as far as those pitch kind of happen. Just like the concept of some of that type fare, just not falling off or slip in some of that type fare as far as those pitch kind of go. I mean, the feel like the lyrics is just a little bit more, it's just a little bit more emphatic. Just, I mean, the pacing of the production is a little bit more dramatic, but it's actually a more kind of just bravado type song just within the concept of that particular one. But it is a nice tone. Look What I Got's a quality one. It's like a dreary kind of venue ambience, I would have to say. Just some hangout fun to definitely get, smoke up and trip. I would definitely feel like about this one. Goes pretty well with Big Dog, I'd have to say. Good hangout type one, just without the Lil Wayne type hook, I'd have to say. And it's pretty sleepy type overall appeal. So it's just interesting in some of these club songs. I will say that apart from Hold Up, there's really not like a gnarled kind of nightclub blitz on here. I really feel like the most blitzing type song in terms of like the crazy factor is Hold Up. This is just a little bit more, it sounds a little bit more mellow and golden eyes type concept as far as those pitch can happen. It's just not as ferocious in terms of the aspect. I feel like there is at least, minus like the song Yeah We Getting Rich, I feel like for the most part, this tone of this product is not as much. I mean, it's definitely probably, you get the feeling that these folks are probably sipping syrups and pitches like that, smoking hella good, but it's just the concept is just a little bit more ambient within the tone as far as those pitches kind of happen. There's just not as in terms of like I would have to say it's just not stand on couches this time. It's just within the pitch. I mean, there's definitely some nightclub type appeal, but it's more in an ambient type vibe, just kind of kicking back just within the tone. A lot more Malay. Just there's evening dredge on here and night malaise as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just not as much ferocious kind of conduct I'd say, but it is a nice tone. It's just dreary, and I would say the same thing about Big Dog and kind of the bittersweet tone of yeah we getting rich, and then just kind of the concept of the malaise that can't remember and quit flossing, some of those type ones, and then yeah, it's kind of within the tone. But I look after a good nice song, kind of get very sleepy. Then Ghetto is a nice one. This is a surprising one because this is more homely type song, but it's like a surprising kind of neighborhood song I'd say, more homely, but it feels like a superb kind of smoke trip to kind of get here. And this is just some drowsy kind of fun to kind of have. So this is definitely one is smoke and sleep all day as far as those pitches going to happen. I mean, maybe like the standard concept of this house, maybe like the standard concept of this house cleaning, getting some simple kind of errands done as far as those pitches going to happen. But I would look after it, look after just within the tone is just surprisingly just really feels like something that just really feels like something like mixtape soul, just a kickback to just really chief in some pitches like that, just enjoying the night, just enjoying the afternoon, just a simple kind of snackage and just pitches like that. Just watch basketball, watch football, watch some good movies, Netflix, some of that type of just within the tone behind it, just some standard kickback of just homely type appeal. I mean, the lyrics behind this song, it's not, I do, 2 Chainz does talk about smoking on here within the pitch behind it, but it's just not as, it's not as full bound of just going out and saying, yeah, smoke, sit, 2 pounds of weed, go out and just not remember everything as far as this pitch can happen. But it is a nice tone, just being able to say, yeah, it's just a nice one, spark up a bit and just appreciate the afternoon, just have a good, mellow Sunday and get some snacks as far as this pitch can happen. Just good type tone. So that's the pitch behind it. I would have to say, so this album gets a 10 out of 10. The social score, I think I'm going to give this social score probably like an 8.75. I feel like within the pitch behind it, it has a lot of appeal on here. There are some good nightclub songs, but I feel like the craziest one in terms of like the most casual appeal, I'd probably have to say, apart from like maybe the Lil Wayne song Big Dog, which is just not as much of like a dynamite KO as it probably could have been. It's not like it's a bad song. It's just not as casual, immediate, I had to say. But probably the best song on here in terms of like the most immediate factor would be Hold Up, which is just kind of the concept about it. And even that is not like a song that's super commonplace amounts of people might remember. But there's some good makeshift ladies dredge songs on here, relatively trendy. If folks remember OJ to Juice Man days from like the first half of 2009 and just the late 2000s. The Ludacris song is pretty emphatic, but it's also bittersweet. It's a good tone for that. There is like a solid amount of nightclub songs on here, but they're just more kind of hazy and ambient, more so than like the standard craziness of something that Future would do or something like Waka Flocka would do, some of that drill type stuff. It's just a little bit more of like an ambient type project. It's kind of emphatic, but just within the tone of almost bittersweet, I'd have to say. It's just within the pitch. But this is a pretty excellent smoking album, I would have to say. If you have some smoking buddies, it's a good concept to really kick back with the number of these on here, but it's just not as ferocious, I'd say. It's not like that's a bad thing. But yes, it's just minus the casual bop and the overall ferocious energy is something that just has like a vicious kind of spark. I'd say it's 8.75 social. So in terms of the future, the unfortunate thing is Playaz Circle is basically done as far as those pitches going to happen. Dollar Boy has put out some projects. I'm going to get to some of his mixtapes. 2 Chainz definitely has continued mixtapes and plenty of albums. I'm going to get to some of his stuff. I basically completed the concept. Now, there actually is a third Playaz Circle album. It's more independent. If I can find it, if it is on YouTube, something like that, I will review that one as well. But they have something that came out like in 2006 or the first half of 2007. I'd say some pretty excellent type fare. But I look after it just within the tone that this is another classic here, and I just would have to say it's kind of in like a seldom time as far as like a transit kind of phase for rap music that should not. I would definitely go back and do the research on this particular album because it does have some gems on here that are worth it.